it's Christine with His Own. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to be answering your questions on chastity. So thank you for everyone who wrote in. I'll start with the first one. So here we go. The first one is there discernment in what we are consuming? Sorry, I'm reading from my paper here. Is there discernment in what we are consuming, music/TV? It's hard to find clean music and movies. So how do we discern watching or listening to certain things? Great question. It is really hard to find movies or music that is clean. There is some out there. But it doesn't mean that, we can't listen to anything. So I think that we can go to two extremes. Either you don't listen to anything or you listen to everything and you're like, it's not going to affect me. So is there some kind of discernment process? So for me, if I'm watching a movie, let's say there's a provocative scene that comes up. Thank the Lord for the fast forward button. So a lot of times if I am watching a movie at home, I have control over fast forwarding through things, and that's what I'll do. If it's a movie that I'm actually interested in and I want to see how it unravels, I usually just kind of fast forward through it. But if I'm at the movie theaters and something comes up, I usually when you kind of get that feeling of like, ugh, okay, I hope this isn't something that's going to be happening all the time. There has been one movie that I walked out of, and there's probably more that I should have walked out of, but usually I try to give a movie a chance. So a lot of time I feel like they put a lot of just junk up forward in the beginning of the movie, and so as the movie goes on you don't see as much of that, like the language kind of dies down or the provocative scenes kind of die down. So usually I give a movie quite a few minutes, and if I'm continually feeling that uncomfortable feeling, then that's when I'll just walk out and say, you know what, I gave this movie 25-30 minutes and I'm still feeling really uncomfortable about it, then leave. And props to you, because I remember being in a movie when I was in college and thinking, as I was sitting there watching it, I was there with some of my friends just thinking, over and over again, I kept having that uncomfortable feeling like, ugh, I don't like this. I don't want to be sitting through this. But it just kept happening, and I stayed because I was too chicken to get up and to actually say, hey, you know what? I'm not really liking this movie, so I'm just going to go wait outside. And I wish I would have done that. But just listen to your conscience. Again, if you're watching from home, it's easier to kind of fast forward. Same with music too. I think it's hard to find music that's not suggestive. But at the end of the day, just keeping in mind what we're putting into our bodies. Is it good? Is it good for me? I know when I was growing up, I would think oh, I can listen to this as many times as I want because I'm never going to say that out loud. But we start to say it in our minds, and then before we know it, it just slips out of our mouth. So it's kind of hard to put into words how to discern that. But I would say when your conscience starts to tell you okay, we're feeling a little bit uncomfortable here, then that's the time to make a move. But again, if you're watching movies from home, it is so much easier to just fast forward. So use that feature. Okay, the second question. How do we deal with the feelings of being a failure because you don't live out chastity perfectly in your relationship? And this is a great question because, honey, you are not the only one. I think most people go through that, but people are not going to admit it. So you are not alone, and you are not the only one. There were many times in my relationship that I had that feeling of being a failure. And how do we deal with those? I think, first of all, you need to know that your desire to be with someone and to be intimate with someone is a good desire. So do not feel shameful about that at all, because that is a good desire. And it's good that we want to be with that, and our bodies want to be with that other person. So I would say first, start there. Don't be ashamed that you want to be intimate with someone, and that your body, starts to do these things, not to be too forward, but that your body starts to react to that. That's good. Our desire is good. So start there. But how do you deal with the feelings of being a failure? First of all, acknowledging that just because maybe you fail does not make you a failure. That is the beauty of our Christianity, the beauty of our Catholic faith too, is that we can start again. Confession is incredible, and we can start again. So when you feel like you're failing, address that with the person that you're dating. I shared about this in one of my videos, in one of my lives that I did. I think it was Chastity within dating and engagement. But just how open my husband and I were with each other. If we were struggling or having a hard time, like we would tell each other. And so we knew where we were. And there was not this like sense of shame. Neither one of us like made each other feel shame for that. It was like both of us were in this journey together. And for me, I kept thinking like, I feel like, your relationship is kind of like a stumbling, like I'm just going to stumble all the way through it. But just because you failed does not make you a failure. Get back up and start over again, because you are a gift, and the person that you are with is a gift, and you will always be a gift. So if you are feeling that shame, talk to the person that you are with, and figure out what you can do, because you don't want to feel like a failure, and you don't want to make that person feel like a failure. Nobody wants you to stay there. So talk it over with the person that you are with, and also just know that, again, you're not a failure because you failed. God makes us new every moment. So when those feelings start to arise, talk it over with the person that you're with, but also say a prayer and just allow the Lord to remind you that you are a gift, and that will never be taken from you. And I think for me, like, the more my husband and I talked about as we were dating, we would always come back to that point of like, we want what's best for each other. So how do we help each other get there? And you are not alone. You are not alone. I feel like a lot of times in Chastity Talks, people are not open about that, that they felt like failures, that they did not do it perfectly. No one does it perfectly. But with God's grace, you can achieve chastity, and it is so beautiful. So hang in there. Question number 3. Has pregnancy changed chastity for me? This is such an interesting question. I had to really think about that. I would say no. It has not changed chastity for me, being pregnant. Because obviously, like, can't get pregnant on top of being pregnant. So my husband and I don't have to, think about or discern about practicing NFP. But I would say no, it hasn't. Being pregnant has not changed chastity for me at all. Because again, going back to what chastity really is, it's this virtue which is defending love from selfishness. And so that's something that I always have to check. Just because I'm pregnant doesn't mean I get an excuse from treating my husband like a gift, or him treating me like a gift. Pregnancy is not an excuse for anything. So I would say it has not changed chastity for me at all. If anything, it has, pregnancy has made me more self-conscious about my body, for sure. And that's been tough. But it's just a constant, like, returning back to the Lord and returning back to this reality that my body can do something amazing. And that, my body is not my worth. And I think a lot of times as women, we can focus on that. We get too focused on the fact that our body kind of is our measure of worth. If I'm this size, if I have, if my skin has perfect complexion or my hair is, luscious and long and voluminous. And, we start to measure our worth depending upon our body. And it's something that I've been awoken to being pregnant, because there have been times where I feel so unattractive. And I'm like, how can my husband be attracted to me? When my body is stretching and I have stretch marks and everything's getting bigger and I'm gaining so much weight. But at the end of the day, you realize that you're a gift, and that your body is not just for you. I'm sustaining 2 other lives outside of my own life. And so I try to remind myself that. So pregnancy has not necessarily changed chastity for me. If anything, it has reminded me that my body is not the measure of my beauty and is not the measure of my worth. Okay, question 4. How far is too far? This is the one that so many people want to know. And to be quite honest, it's not something that we can answer for you. There are lots of people in ministry that have kind of like these standards, like this is too far, this is too far, this is too far. And I remember being in high school and my religion teacher saying, when it comes to chastity, like, you don't want to push that person to love to the edge to where they're scared of falling. And so for me, when I was practicing chastity in my dating and engagement, and even now in marriage, it's not a question of like how far is too far. It's, am I loving? Like, is this loving to my husband? Is this loving to myself? Am I putting him in a place where I'm pushing him so close to the edge that I'm just like, if you fall, it's okay. That's not love. Love is not selfish. So I would say that, it's so hard to address, but I would say that, think of it this way, not how far is too far, but you don't want to push that person to the edge, so close to the edge where they are about to fall. You don't ever want to put someone in a place like that. So just keeping that in mind with whoever you're with in your relationship, that you don't want to bring them to the edge to where they can easily fall. But if you do fall, get up. Don't stay there, because you're not done, and you're not ruined. So don't stay in that place. Also, something to think about when you are dating and you're practicing chastity, along those lines of, you don't want to go too far. Just something to keep in mind is be mindful of drinking. It's totally fine to have drinks with each other, as long as you're of age. But just be mindful, because once you start to, introduce alcohol, things can move a lot faster. So just be mindful of that. Okay, number 5, how to grow in the virtue of chastity if you're not dating. And I answered this question a lot in my live on Facebook, about chastity in my single years. And this is such a beautiful time, because you get to really kind of hone in on your good intentions with your guy friends. Also, just like honing in on the fact that you are a gift. So what you're putting into your body, what you see and what you hear and what you read, this is a time to really cultivate your identity as a gift. And I talked about flirting, because I think, and sometimes in our Christian culture, everyone's like, oh, don't flirt, that's wrong. No, flirting is okay, but you don't want to flirt for the wrong intention. So if you're flirting because you're interested in somebody and you want them to pick up on these subtle signs that you're giving out, great, go for it. Let them know that you like being with them. Even just touching them on the shoulder or touching them on the arm, whatever it is. But if you find yourself flirting because you just want that person's attention or you want to feel affirmed, then that is not chastity, because that is very selfish. So in your single years, this is such a beautiful time to cultivate your identity as a gift, but also like practicing treating other people as gifts, especially your guy friends. And it doesn't matter how old you are. It's like when you take on that knowledge and belief that you are a gift, people see that and they start to treat you differently. So cultivate your identity as gift, but also practice treating, especially your guy friends, as gifts, because they are. But just this is a time to kind of just to keep check with your intentions. Make sure they're good and make sure they're pure intentions. Okay. Question number 6. How did I live chastity with my husband before marriage? So I covered this also in my video of chastity in dating and engagement. But I'll kind of give you a short synopsis. I don't want this video to be too long, but a short synopsis. But basically, it wasn't easy, but we talked about it all the time. We had a long distance relationship for most of our relationship. So it was hard because we'd be talking on the phone, and then, once or twice a month we got to see each other. And so that, it was like such a intense weekend that we would see each other. And all of these feelings and emotions just coming out. You're like, like I'm finally with this person that I like. And so we talked about it all the time. And again, we were very open with each other. If one of us realized that we were really struggling in chastity, we would be open and share that with the other person. And something else that we did was we tried to keep some parameters on our time together. So obviously, like, I didn't stay at his house. I stayed at some friend's house on the street. And even after we got engaged and I moved to Florida, I got to live with our friends, and it was amazing. They have become some of my closest friends here. So we set up parameters like that. I was not going to stay with him, and also just like keeping, being mindful of like how late he was getting, because we had such a short time. A lot of times it was just like a weekend that I could be there, or he could come to Nashville. So any of those times, like if he came to Nashville, he stayed with someone else. If I was, coming to visit him in Florida, I stayed with someone else. But we kind of put up those perimeters. Again, it's not just about rules, or like this is not something that imposed on our relationship. If anything, it made us stronger and more vulnerable with each other. So, okay, so to answer more of that, you can go check out my live on Facebook under Chastity in Dating and Engagement. Number 7, do I find the lack of contraception scary? Great question. No. No, I find that actually contraception is more scary because of all of the ramifications that happens when you are using contraceptions, especially if you're using the pill. I did a YouTube video on the pill a while back. You can find that also on our YouTube channel. But it's more scary to me, like in that little pill, like how that affects my body. And I did not like that. But I did not find the lack of contraception scary. So when my husband and I got married, actually our intention was to, practice NFP for a few months, just to kind of get things settled. And because obviously we, been in a long distance relationship, and finances were super tight, so we had discerned and prayed, okay, so for a few months we'll, practice NFP, but God had other plans. Gave us twins. Gave us twins right away. So, contraception, to me, has always been something that, if I'm going to be quite frank, is a little bit more selfish. Because with contraception, you actually don't have to sacrifice anything. you don't have to think of the other person. If I'm contracepting, then I can have sex whenever I want. And I know a lot of women feel that's more of like an empowerment, for their body. They don't have to worry about getting pregnant. They don't have to fear getting pregnant because they don't want to get pregnant in that time. But to me, it's a false sense of empowerment. Because NFP, when I was learning NFP, you learn about your own body, and you learn your cycle, and you learn what happens naturally to your body, these phases. And that was empowering to me, to know exactly what my body was doing, or what my body was telling me and signaling to me as a woman. So to me, it's kind of sad because contraception does not empower me at all. The thought of using contraception does not empower me, because for me, I would start to lose that vulnerability with my husband, and I would lose that communication. That's one of the most beautiful things about NFP is the communication aspect. Because when you're practicing NFP, you have to communicate with your spouse. You guys have to talk monthly. Okay, is this do we feel like this is a good time? But not only that, but with NFP, it's not just about, because a lot of people can equate NFP to contraception. They're like, well, it's just a natural way to contracept. But I actually had a good friend that wrote me a message about this, and it was so beautiful because the way she explained it to me, and she was like, no, contraception is not like NFP at all, because God designed sex to be unitive and procreative. It doesn't mean that every time you have sex, you're going to get pregnant, but He designed it to be unitive and procreative. So when you have sex, you are open to both being unitive and procreative. And when you are contracepting, you're not being open to procreation, and you're actually not really being unitive, because you're saying, I'm giving you part of me but not all of me. That's not unitive. When you practice NFP, you are seeing sex as the gift that it is, as the way it was intended, to be unitive and to be procreative. So with contraception, in a sense, it's giving you a false sense of unity, because you're not giving your entire self. And for me, NFP actually deepens my relationship with the Lord, because you give a deeper trust to Him, that you give Him control. Like, okay, Lord, maybe you and your spouse, this is not a time that y'all have discerned together that you cannot use sex properly, being unitive and procreative, more like the procreative side, that you and your spouse have discerned that together. And with contraception, again, you can have sex whenever you want, but it's not using sex in the way that it was created, again, to be unitive and procreative. So anyways, it was kind of a long-winded way to explain that. But I did a YouTube video on the pill a while back. You can find it on this channel. But again, chastity in its essence is defending love of selfishness. So practicing as a single person, dating and engaged, or a married person, it always has the same core, which is, again, defending real love from selfishness. So if you're single, if you're dating and engaged, or just dating, or you're married, keeping that in mind, that chastity is that virtue that cultivates real love. So I hope answering some of these questions helped you. And I know, again, chastity can be such a weird topic, but we just felt like we needed to share more about that, because it's hard to find real talk, in ministry. So we just want to share our own experiences with you and let you know that you're not alone, and that there's nothing worth more in life than pursuing a relationship with God and pursuing his heart. And when you do that, it just like trickles into every other aspect of your life. And that is where we find our fulfillment. Chastity is not a set of rules or an imposition on your relationship. It is a freedom to love someone in a very real way. It's freedom to love without selfishness. So hang in there to everyone who is practicing chastity. If you're new to it, welcome. It is a journey, and do not give up. Do not give up. There are many, many times that it is difficult. But when you start to see the fruits of it, there's nothing like it. You realize that this is truly a gift. That you are a gift, the other person is a gift, and you're a gift for each other. So hang in there, y'all. If you have any other questions, feel free to comment below or to send a message, Instagram or Facebook. Everything is anonymous, so don't worry, whatever you ask. But yes, thank you for sticking with this long video, and thank you for letting me share with you about my journey in chastity from single to married. I am still learning, and I am imperfect as well. So, we're all in this together. Thank you, Lord, for making us new. That's all I gotta say. But again, thank you. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Be His Own, and Twitter at Be His Own Music. And again, if you missed any of my lives, they're still up on Facebook. Chastity in my single years, chastity in my dating and engagement, and then chastity in marriage. Thanks again, y'all.